Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Thursday evening. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always, and joining me is my good friend, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Doing very well. I am in the fantasy football playoffs for the first time in what feels like 40 billion years.
Very nice.
I was never in the fantasy playoffs when it came to our, GAC league or whatever it was, but squeezed in at the last minute. I've got George Kittle. Other person has Puka Nacua, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, off to a great start then tonight. But yes, we did a GAC former Bullbeat Writers League for a few years, and your team always got like deathly injured like every single year by like week 4. As is the nature of fantasy football sometimes. But I felt like your team was always like by week 6, you were just like dead.
Here's how bad the rest of my team usually was. I had Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in a keeper league, so I had him for 3 years.
Yep.
And I never made the playoffs. That's how the rest of my team went.
So, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, great calls, and then everything else was just shite. But oh well.
And that is why you should use Prize Picks.
Exactly.
You don't have to deal with injuries and stuff like that. PrizePicks.com/guilty. Shout out. They are great sponsorships for us, and we're super happy to work out with them. A little quick read for them, but Prize Picks presents every show of the Guilty as Charged podcast. I can't believe we're at this point in the season, but we have 4 games left in the regular season. We are coming down the home stretch, so it's kind of crazy to me. I'm going to be in Utah for Christmas, and I might start my draft prep if I have some downtime to kill. So we're a few weeks away from starting watching draft prospects again, which it feels like yesterday we were just doing that for Ladd McConkey and Joe Alt and Junior Colson, and now these guys are 2 of them at least are potential Pro Bowl players for the Chargers this year. So excited to get back to that point, but at the same time, I'm also kind of dreading it a little bit. College tape is way less fun to watch, but it is what it is. I can't believe that we're at this point. The Chargers have 2 more home games, and then they play 2 road games, and then that's it. Regular season, Jim Harbaugh's first regular season is over, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we are approaching December 14th, which was when the Chargers lost 63-21 to the Raiders. So we are almost at that anniversary, and I got to say, it's a very different feeling this time around, that's for sure.
Yes, the Chargers-Raiders second game of the season this time around is very different than last time around. Vibes completely swapped, essentially, so we'll see how that goes for the Raiders. As an aside, there's like starting to be some rumblings that Tom Telesco might lose his job after 1 year in Vegas. So I don't know, man. It's weird vibes up there in Vegas land. Just do not envy that position at all.
Someone is going to convince themselves that because he drafted Justin Herbert, he should draft their next quarterback, which to an extent, yes, he did, but we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, firing a GM after 1 year would be unprecedented, and he kind of did exactly what the Raiders wanted him to do. I mean, he drafted Brock Bowers. He got a nice little layup in the first round. I mean, even their 3rd round pick is weirdly good. DeMar Glaze, their offensive tackle. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, they didn't want to do the whole rookie quarterback thing, and so he didn't, and he did exactly what they wanted. And I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, we are here to preview the Chargers and Buccaneers game. A game that I think has lost a little luster for me, just given the Buccaneers injuries and some of the Chargers injury as well. But a super crucial matchup between both of these 2 teams. The Chargers obviously can't win their division anymore. The Buccaneers can. So the Buccaneers are in first place in their division. They are multiple games up on the Atlanta Falcons, but they've lost to the Falcons twice. So if the Buccaneers kind of falter a bit here, they run the risk of not winning the division and also not making the playoffs. So I do expect the Buccaneers to be at their best. Chargers coming off a loss. The vibes around the team after the game were rather angry, more so than anything else. I think they feel like they should have won that game against the Chiefs. So I expect the Chargers to bounce back this week. So I'm very curious to see, just from like a general energy standpoint, who comes out swinging first in this game. And to that point, we'll dive right into some coaching storylines. So for you, Tyler, what are you most specifically looking for when it comes to this coaching matchup of Jesse Minter versus Liam Coen, as well as Greg Roman versus Todd Bowles and company?
Yeah, I would love to carry on from your point. I love trying to find multi-week narratives. And from your point, from the film review, Jesse Minter was very much so able to potentially express what we thought he wanted to do, or what he's been wanting to do with, of course, the blitz rate, how much he played man coverage. And this is, I know Cam Hart was off the injury report, but this is really the first game where, by all accounts, and hopefully Fulton, Still, and Hart could all be their full selves. Even though he was off their injury report, he's played the game, and he wasn't playing the entire game last time anyhow against the Chiefs. So now you have your whole group there. Of course, Lohi Gilman's not back, but I mean, Jordan James is playing fantastic. Your edge rushers play great. Your defensive tackles play great. Denzel Perryman might return in some capacity. Obviously, you feel great about Deion Henley. Like, this should be potentially the most you can express your defense and what you want to do, even maybe more so than last week. And you have far fewer things to worry about on offense this time around. So I am very, very curious if Minter continues that trend and we see this sudden shift heading into the postseason that might catch some teams off guard.
Yeah, I think specifically in this matchup, you're talking about, the two leading pass catchers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at least in terms of targets this year, are tight end Cade Otton, and then obviously Mike Evans, who I don't know if he's on pace for another 1,000 yards. So he has 590 yards. So he's slowed down a bit this season. He's obviously missed some time with injury. But Mike Evans in particular, we know what he's about. Like, he's a big physical receiver. He's going to want to, body up the Chargers, secondary pieces. And that's how he's going to win. And Cade Otton is a big physical tight end. So this Chargers secondary, Derwin James, Deion Henley, like it's a bring the lunch pail kind of matchup, because they're going to have to battle physically for 4 quarters against a very physical Tampa Bay passing receiving core.
Yeah, as Caleb points out in the chat, Mike Evans did not practice the last 2 days, I believe, with a hamstring injury. So I don't know. It's a lot of Cade Otton, I guess. Hey, man, I at this point, I've been wrong about Cade Otton. When I watched him in college, it was like, okay, like, fine, but maybe like your blocker type. Yeah, he's been great for them. So good for him, of course. But yeah, it's a very different team. Even just looking at like week 4, I think it was. I think the Bucs had just beaten the Eagles, and the Chargers just lost to the Steelers and Chiefs. And you're thinking like, holy cow, this Bucs team in a few weeks or in a few months is going to be crazy. And you look at the injury report, and it's like, you don't know who's even there anymore for the Bucs, but they're very dangerous.
Yeah, it's an injury report that we really have to monitor this week. The list for the Buccaneers is extremely lengthy. As Caleb points out, like some of their best players on offense are all DNPs. Bucky Irving, their running back, him and Rashad White are basically like a 50-50 split. But Bucky sounds like he's not going to play. Sterling Shepard, who's been kind of the number 2 without Chris Godwin, he has not practiced this week. Tristan Wirfs, he has not practiced this week. Mike Evans, etc. So we're going to prepare for this episode and this game as if those players are going to play, because that's kind of like the nature of the beast right now. And every team handles things differently. But of course, we can talk about, alternative options. But, the Buccaneers, if they are without Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Sterling Shepard, and Bucky Irving, like this is a game the Chargers secondary should come out and perform very strongly if that is the case.
Yes, I feel as good about this matchup as any that I felt good about that I ended up being wrong about. So I'm excited to see how this expresses itself. Although I will say the defense generally isn't what lets me down in these situations.
Yes, the defense has been generally fantastic. There have been some little moments here and there, but yeah. On the opposite side of the ball for me, Tristan Wirfs has not practiced yet this week. We'll see what happens there. The Chargers have relied so heavily on Khalil Mack to generate one-on-one pressure, and he's getting double teamed and chipped at one of the top 10 highest rates in the league, according to PFF. And so my thing from a coaching standpoint this week is, if Tristan Wirfs is able to hold Khalil Mack down, which is very possible. Tristan Wirfs is one of the very best offensive tackles in the league. He's only allowed 9 pressures all season long. He has not allowed more than 2 pressures in a game since 2022. Like, this guy is playing a different sport. Like, it's crazy. I love Rashawn Slater. I think he's probably the best offensive tackle in the AFC, but Tristan Wirfs in the NFC is probably a step up this week. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't get chip help or double team help ever, and Tristan Wirfs is just kind of holding things down. He has the second highest rate on an island of any offensive tackle in the league. Only Lane Johnson is higher. So when he's healthy, the Buccaneers they set it and forget it. They don't even bother chipping. The Chargers do that to a degree as well with Rashawn Slater. So if Tristan Wirfs wins his matchup against Khalil Mack, and they do it with a true one-on-one situation, that frees up chip and double team help for the rest of the Chargers offensive defensive line. And that's going to force somebody else to beat them. Whether that is Thule, whether that is Joey Bosa, whether that is Poona Ford, somebody else is going to have to step up. And this is not a lack of confidence in Khalil Mack. I love Khalil Mack. He's one of my favorite Chargers of all time. He's been fantastic. He's one of the most productive pass rushers in the league this season. But Tristan Wirfs is a different animal. So if he is able to hold it down, what does that look like for everybody else? How does Jesse Minter turn or tweak the blitz style this week? I think is super important, because getting after Baker Mayfield is absolutely crucial this week.
Yeah, 100%. Baker Mayfield, the last time they played him, dire situation, wasn't all that great for the Rams, for what it's worth. This time around, and with the Bucs, for whatever reason, with Dave Canales or without Dave Canales, he's just been aggressive, and maybe to a fault sometimes, but the explosion games are potentially there. So definitely got to get to him. Kind of tied in with the coverage, with the blitz, right? Like, are they going to change it up in that regard? Do you have to? Do you feel they have the weapons where you have to worry? I don't know. But yeah, whoever is Tristan Wirfs, assuming Tristan Wirfs even plays, whoever's on his side, unfortunately, as we say with like Rashawn Slater most weeks, enjoyed the week off kind of in a way.
Yeah.
But the other guys, or truly line over the guard, or whatever it ends up being, have at it.
Yeah, the Chargers are pretty traditional of like Khalil rushes against the left tackle for the majority of the time. And, they mix it up from time to time. Mostly I feel like when Bud comes in, because Bud likes to rush from the left tackle, which I find interesting. So I think they probably got to move Khalil around. It basically is what I'm saying in this one, because Baker Mayfield, for as good of a resurgence as he's having in his career in Tampa Bay, he does have the 7th highest turnover-worthy pass play percentage in the NFL among starting quarterbacks. And he is tied with Kirk Cousins for the most fumbles in the league with 12. So if they can get after Baker Mayfield, teams have shown that they can have success that way against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But if your best pass rusher is getting shut down from Tristan Wirfs, that's a different kind of challenge for this coaching staff.
Yeah, Wirfs played he played the whole last game. Okay, I'm just curious. He allowed 2 pressures against, I'm guessing, Crosby. So, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how that goes this week. I mentioned the injuries. One thing we know for sure is that Antoine Winfield is not going to play. He is going to go on injury reserve probably on Saturday morning, which is unfortunate in terms of the entertainment value, in terms of being able to watch a great player. But for the Chargers, it's really good news, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are currently 31st in defensive success rate against the pass. And that's with Antoine Winfield being very healthy all season long. So they let Carlton Davis walk in the offseason. They didn't really replace him with anybody particular. They kind of had some guys in the pipeline that they were excited to watch, apparently. And so their cornerback room is a concern. Their safety room has been good, but again, Antoine Winfield is not going to play this week. So not having that guy back there is going to, I think, create some opportunities for the Chargers, particularly in the slot. And obviously that is where Ladd McConkey makes his payday. He's going to be going up against his former college teammate, Tyke Smith, who is the main slot corner for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this is also a sneaky performance to see what exactly the Chargers' plans are for Stone Smartt, because they don't the Buccaneers don't really have a high-end safety duo anymore. Mike Edwards, they signed off of waivers a couple of weeks ago. He's also not practicing this week. So this safety group for the Buccaneers, the slot corner area, is a weakness of the Buccaneers. And if Ladd can play, if they can expand Stone Smart's role, I think the Chargers can have some success with those two players in particular with the pass this week.
Yeah, and they've done a very good job. I think every time we've seen bad slot corner or rough slot corner situation, as far back as probably the Steelers game, at least relative to the rest of the defense, we said that McConkey's found success. And he's on pace for 1,000 receiving yards. So he's found success plenty of times. He's done it against good slot corners too. So something in a game like this would be fantastic. Do you know the snap breakdown for who played most in the slot against the, what's their names? Chiefs?
Of a Chiefs player?
No, of the for the Chargers. So basically with McConkey out, who was the primary slot guy? And was that Palmer? I guess I should have had that one ready. But I'm curious who the beneficiary is in that instance.
Why can I not find this right now?
That's okay. I can also look for it. It's probably Palmer. If it's Quentin Johnston, I can transition.
It was Palmer. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Palmer had 26. The next closest was Will Dissly with 8, and he played one half.
And he's not playing. So, okay.
So maybe not a Stone Smartt game, I guess. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's completely fine. Stone Smartt didn't play in the slot a ton, but his 3 catches, he was motioned over to some inline version and then went out for some route. Like a couple corners or whatever it was, one to the flat. So he will work from the inside, maybe not specifically the slot. So I think you're right there still.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. But in case you couldn't catch on, that is what I'm most excited to watch this week. I should have led with that one.
You're good.
We'll see about Ladd's availability. He has been a limited participant in practice this week, which has been more than what he's been able to do last week. He's running routes and things like that. I forget which beat reporter tweeted it out, but last week he was out there with a pretty decently big brace, and this week he's just had like a sleeve on the knee. So I think we know Ladd tried to play on Sunday night. Ladd's going to try playing again, and I think he might end up getting out there if everything keeps going the way that it is.
Yeah, I think he'll now play the game we thought he was going to play. And if he doesn't play a lot, if he plays sparingly, that's fine. I'm not saying this is a bad team in front of the Chargers, but I think they can get by.
Yeah, I do as well. So, Tyler, what are you most excited to watch this week?
Guys, I'm feeling it. Call me a Quentin Johnston apologist.
Hey.
I've always been. Just kidding. No, I was not thrilled with the pick. But, you make it work. I saw something against the Chiefs that I hadn't seen from Quentin Johnston. And that was a kind of physicality that I'm not very much used to. You pointed out in so many words that this Tampa Bay defense stinks. Particularly, in the secondary, they're not great, and they're missing their best player now. Look, guys, I think Quentin Johnston's going to hit 100 this week. Hey. And I will be at the game yelling Q, not boo, not boo, guys. I will be yelling Q at least once. Now, the last time I said that, he had the worst game of his career. But this time, it might break for us. I really genuinely, what he did against the Chiefs, I know it wasn't a huge game, but what I saw from him just felt different. I saw confidence. I saw kind of a swagger to him that I am not used to seeing, a toughness, a willingness to get there and face contact. Just not used to that. So I think if he's kind of feeling it and he's feeling good and this defense is as advertised. Yes, Romeo, that's what I'm talking about. 191 yards and 2 touchdowns for Quentin Johnston. 1 rushing, 1 passing. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it was honestly probably pretty easily my favorite Quentin Johnston game. I know that's not necessarily saying a ton, but the physicality was great to see. Yards after catch, outside of the jump ball early, it was okay, this is what Quentin is supposed to be. Crossing routes, deep overs, short passes, get him some yak opportunities. and he responded in kind. And I understand that, he's not, again, his one career 100-yard game was with a kind of a junk play at halftime. But
yeah,
this to me felt like a needed response from Quentin Johnston. It wasn't bad last week, but it wasn't great either. And so for him to go out against the Chiefs, a team who he's traditionally struggled against, and having that kind of game, I think can go a long way with his confidence. And hopefully we can get him back on track over the last month of the season.
Yep, I think we're getting a true over 100 yards game from Quentin Johnston this game. And if he doesn't get that, I will still be here after the show, and you can yell at me.
If he doesn't get it, as long as he can have a good game, I guess I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
I think, again, we'll see what happens with Ladd, but I think this is a good spot for the Chargers receivers. The rest of the offense, I don't know. Justin Herbert's injury is definitely a little bit of a concern. What the shit?
We only do things with chickens around here, Melton.
That is, wow. That was apologies to our audio audience.
Wow, Bo Melton. Jeez Louise, Alex. All your Rutgers guys. Crazy.
Yeah, there's a rather inappropriate comment in the chat there for a second, but apologize there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to the opposite side of the coin here. Tyler, what about the Buccaneers is keeping you up at night?
It's the wounded dog backed into a corner nature of the Bucs that terrifies me, and that's mostly to do with Baker Mayfield and what they can do in the second half. And I thought that, okay, maybe they, were very dangerous. We saw them be a pretty great offense. But with all these injuries, and look, this is the most injuries they've had, so it will get worse, I think, this game, especially with Minter. But they're 10th in EPA in the second half on the season. But I figured, okay, last few weeks, how are you doing? I'm sorry, they're 7th over the season. They are still 10th over the last few weeks since week 10. So they can still get it done. Baker Mayfield is still very, very dangerous. It's, again, kind of boom or bust. But I definitely think that they can be dangerous in the second half. If I had to pick a particular player also who we have not mentioned, at some point, Rachaad White is finally met me in the open field of battle. No, I liked Rachaad White. If everybody missed that, has been more efficient this year, is one of the better receiving backs in the league, top 10 in, if you filter for X number of catches in yards after the catch per reception, yards per route run, top 10 in missed tackles forced as a receiver. So that's very dangerous. I don't know how much he'll be able to do in this game. I really do trust the Chargers defense, but he put up a $120 and 2 touchdowns against the Raiders last game. He's a guy who can get it done, not as much as a runner, but definitely more as a receiver. So I'm just kind of nervous for the second half again. I want to see one more game for the Chargers in the second half before I really start to buy into this whole second half thing, because what we saw against the Chiefs was a complete outlier. I think most of us would have lost all of our money if you had said, hey, I bet you the Chargers will go touchdown, field goal in the second half. I said, no way against the Chiefs that would happen. So, yeah, I'm worried about them in the second half for sure.
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers offense with Liam Coen, Liam Cohen's probably the one offensive coordinator not named Ben Johnson that's getting legitimate head coaching hype right now. Obviously, he's doing a great job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. He's had some, offensive coordinator opportunities in the past with Kentucky, and he's been with the Rams, etc. The Buccaneers are 4th in the league in success rate, so they stay on schedule at a tremendously high rate. And part of that is their running back duo with Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. Again, we'll see what happens with Bucky Irving, but the two of those running backs are playing fantastic when it comes to keeping them on schedule. Both of them are averaging over 4 yards per carry. Both of them are receiving threats. So it's probably one of the most balanced backfields in the league if Bucky Irving can stay healthy, which, again, you loved Rachaad White. I loved Bucky Irving. 2 great running back prospects that we were really high on. And it's the Buccaneers are being rewarded with how they are staying on schedule this season. So I think it is a key piece to how the Chargers can force the Buccaneers to get into 3rd and long situations. And I'm excited to see how they do that.
Yep. Thanks for everybody in the chat for having my back. I missed it, but it sounds like it's been a lovely one, apparently.
Some guy was making comments about the size of my head and your ethnicity.
Yours. Oh, and my ethnicity. Your head and
Yes.
my ethnicity.
Yes.
Well, joke's on you. I got a big head too, you dummies.
Yeah.
And my ethnicity. Oh, I missed it. What was the ethnicity joke?
He said you looked like a tiki head.
I guess so. You might be able to, I don't know, find me at Disneyland when you go to the tiki room. It's very possible. What I love for the most part, honestly, about people trying to make fun of Asians in particular, or of any particular kind, is that there's nobody that is far more aggressive and mean towards themselves than Asian families. So there is nothing anybody could say in the chat that like
self-deprecation is strong.
Absolutely roasted each other for. I mean, you know, you hear all the stereotypes and the jokes. We are no filter, dude. No filter. So yeah, tiki head comment, child's play. Come back with something better.
If you're gonna bring it to Tyler, you better bring it.
I got beat for a B+, man. There's nothing you can do.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the guy, he was making all these comments about us, and then he was like, in a positive way. I'm like, how the heck are we supposed to take that as a positive way? I don't. Weird energy tonight in the chat, I guess. What is keeping me up at night about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is their defensive tackle room is really freaking good. Vita Vea is second in the league among nose tackles in pass rush win rate. The only player he is behind is Dexter Lawrence, who is probably the biggest freak on planet Earth when it comes to football. Mm-hmm. So Vita Vea is a fantastic player. He is very capable of taking the center and putting him right in the quarterback's face, and he does it 2 or 3 times a game. And so if it were just him, you would say, okay, go double team that guy. The problem is that they have Calijah Cancey, who I wasn't crazy about him just from a size profile standpoint, and it looks like you weren't either. But he's been a pretty successful, NFL player. Greg Roman said he has some Aaron Donald traits today, which no.
Oh, I thought we left the pit comparisons behind, man. Really, Greg?
Yeah, you can't throw that name around there, Greg, like that. It's just it's not how you do that. But Calijah Cancey does have 17 pressures in the last 3 weeks. So he started the season on injured reserve. He was a pretty successful, rookie defensive tackle player. As this position is difficult to play at a high level as a rookie, and so he comes in, has a good rookie season. Mm-hmm. He's injured, and then he's kind of slow starting, but he's really turning things on over the last 3 weeks. In particular, 17 pressures, like I mentioned, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits. So him and Vita Vea are essentially the only good part about the Bucs defense at this point in time. I mean, all due respect to Lavonte David, he's very clearly not the same player he used to be. Mm-hmm. So that's the matchup to watch. How do the Chargers make sure they are prepared for the Vita Vea bull rushes as well as the Calijah Cancey quickness? It's a very interesting yin and yang there between the two of them. Whereas you watch the Chiefs play, and it's a lot of pocket crushers, right? Like Chris Jones wants to bull rush you, and Tershawn Wharton wants to bull rush you. And that's every team kind of has types with defensive tackles. Like every team kind of prefers the same thing across the board. Whereas the Buccaneers, they have a bull rush king as well as a lightning fast player with Calijah Cancey. So the Chargers are really going to have to bring it on the interior this week. We've seen Zion Johnson play better over the recent times. Trey Pipkins has kind of started to struggle a bit. And so their defensive tackles, and that's how the Chargers offense does not perform this week. If they can't block those two, it could be a long day for the offensive line.
Yeah, Vita Vea, respect to every Chargers lineman that has to go up against him this week. I mostly kind of chalk that up to an L because Dexter Lawrence is the freak of freaks, but Vita Vea is his own other freak tier too.
Yeah,
not an easy one. Cancey's an interesting one. That's kind of like not an X factor, but I don't know how that'll go because very refined rusher, very quick rusher, as you mentioned. Guy that coming out of the draft we knew was like, hey, he's got the twitch, he's got a lot of tools. The difference, obviously, and I don't know what's changed, was the size profile. I mean, he's a 17th percentile in weight, 17th percentile in height guy, 30-inch arms as a defensive tackle. And obviously, it's not like he's been a bad player by any means throughout his NFL career. But what I'm trying to say is Trey Pipkins as a tackle trying to play guard, that quickness is very tough. Zion, it's tough for him, but Zion is also more than capable, and he's way stronger than Calijah Cancey. If he is in the run game, of course, like I think that is a pretty easy win for Zion in most cases, as it was against the Chiefs. I mean, he was phenomenal in the run game against the Chiefs. So it'll be a very interesting battle between those two who have different skill sets or something Cancey can beat, but also like the weaknesses that they can exploit.
Yeah, I think, really this is it's such an interesting game script matchup because the Bucs are so good at staying on schedule. The Chargers defense is so good at keeping defenses off schedule. The offense is not very good on staying on schedule. So this is a really interesting game script matchup. If the Chargers can get out to an early lead and potentially establish the run here a bit, like I think they have the opportunity to really turn this into a very favorable result. But if the Buccaneers start fast and the Chargers have to go pass protect 50 times against these two, it's just a situation that I don't think is a very positive matchup in that regard. Like the Chargers have to stay on schedule, get out to an early lead. And I know like the Buccaneers defense overall is not great, but these two in particular it's been the Chargers kryptonite all season long. And they've played better individual tackles, but I think this is potentially their biggest challenge from a 1 and 2 standpoint because the styles are completely different. They're both really effective rushers. They're both playing at their best right now at this current time. And Trey Pipkins is not playing at his best. So it's a matchup that I think Chargers fans are a little undervaluing, I guess, is maybe the right word. I think we all kind of understand the interior offensive line struggles, but everybody's kind of chalking up the Bucs defense as trash and they're not very good and yada, yada, yada. The stats are this, but they're good at the spots where the Chargers are weakest. And it just creates a very interesting matchup for this team.
Yeah, definitely.
To answer Gabriel's question, I think you double team Vita Vea and you kind of take your chances with Calijah Cancey. I think it is more valuable to have a firmer pocket with Vita Vea's bull rush, and you kind of take your chances with Calijah Cancey one-on-one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, let's get to our X factors of the week here, Tyler. I'll start off with this one, but one of an underrated storyline coming out of last game, which we didn't really talk about either, was the fact that Kimani Vidal actually outsnapped Gus Edwards 32 to 26. So it was the most snaps that Kimani has logged all season long. The 2 weeks ago, I guess, rather, he only played 12 snaps. So I think they came out and were trying to do the whole let's play all three running backs situation. And then obviously Hassan Haskins fumbled and that maybe potentially changed things. But against the Falcons, it was a ton of Gus Edwards snaps, and it really was not a lot of Kimani Vidal snaps. So Vidal logged 32 snaps against the Chiefs, and some of that is the pass protection stuff, him being the pass catcher. But I'm curious if they kind of saw something a little bit with Kimani potentially being more of the 1A as opposed to the 2, or maybe he's a 1B. Maybe his role gets elevated a bit. And again, this is not really a game where I think you want to test the Bucs at the middle. I think this is probably a game where you want to go outside.
Yep.
And that is obviously Kimani's range, and that's where he's going to be best suited. And let's test these edge rushers, man. Let's test Yaya Diaby's ability to set the edge against Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt. Like, I think the tackles are such a big advantage against the run in this week. And so let's get Kimani out in space. Let's see if we can get some explosive runs again. And maybe Kimani has his true breakout game that we've been kind of waiting for.
I love that. So as far as the snap split, I honestly didn't even look at it, didn't even guess that was the case. So I'm glad you found that. As far as the wide outside, whatever runs that they have, especially to the left, of course, it just looks better with Kimani Vidal.
Yeah.
The numbers, I think, in the end looked kind of even, but Vidal had, I think, 2, if not 3, that were called back due to penalty or negated due to penalty. So, like, it looked great. You can tell. Just, like, the juice is there. The stuff on film is there. Just weren't able to capitalize on a couple. But I love that for sure. I think until obviously J.K. Dobbins comes back, I think you've kind of found your role for both. Not that you can only run wide and outside with Vidal and only up the middle with Edwards, because that'll get repetitive and obvious, but it's clear that one is better than the other at the other thing, and that makes it a very good dynamic.
Yeah, and I do think like you still have to play Gus Edwards, right? But
totally,
this is a Kimani game, and I think this is an opportunity for him to get those explosive runs and get out wide and should be fun to see. I'm sure Alex will be very happy on Sunday.
Yes, didn't get the 300 yards or whatever that he was hoping for, but maybe this game.
All right, Tyler, who is your X factor?
I will go with Yaya Diaby here because I think statistically it's like if you had to name the edge rushers who were the most productive this year, I don't think that he would be mentioned if you had to guess. And yet, if you look at just the pure numbers, like he's 9th in pressures this season among edge rushers with 52. He has a higher pass rush productivity than Khalil Mack, as well as pass rush win rate, where he's 7th ahead of Jared Verse and Daniel Hunter and all these guys. If you look at Brandon Thorne's true pressure rate, he is, I believe, 10th in true pressure rate, just behind Nick Bosa and ahead of Jalen Carter, which are pretty good guys to be, like in between in terms of where you are statistically.
Yeah.
So he is, as a rusher, a pass rusher, I think exceeding expectations, of course. As a guy that, I liked watching him at Louisville, good player, but I didn't expect him to be that great. Yes, Stone Smartt, as Randall points out, that's a good one too. But I honestly expect Slater and Alt to handle their business against Yaya Diaby for the most part, but can't discredit the fact that he's having a very efficient and productive season.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that high. He is a bigger player than I realized too. He looks like he put on some weight in the offseason, but he's kind of flipped the script a bit. Last year he had 30 pressures and 9 sacks, which is kind of unheard of in terms of the efficiency of sacks. This year he has 52 pressures and only 3 sacks. So he's getting more pressures, fewer sacks this year, which is interesting. But the good news is they don't really have a second edge rusher. So it's basically him. So I guess I'm a little bit more fired up about that matchup now. I didn't realize he was that effective as a pass rusher.
Yeah, no, I forget at what point I had checked into the season. I think I was probably looking at Khalil Mack stats. I'm like, yeah, Diab. Like, what? When did this happen? So good for them. Thankfully they do not have a second edge rusher that's as good. Like Joe Tryon was a solid prospect, but hasn't quite put it together.
Yeah, they drafted Chris Braswell this past draft, and he's doing okay. I mean, he has 16 pressures, but
yeah, no. So it's a heck of a 1, 2, 3. Different things with Diaby, with Vita Vea, with Cancey. Like that's 3 different things there. But as you mentioned, the run game can make it work, and then their secondary ain't it.
Yeah. Okay, so you're feeling a little bit more dicey about this matchup, I think, than maybe
only because I'm attending.
That's fair. Are you going to predict a loss then?
No, I'm predicting a win for this one because I hate to feel bad for the team the Chargers are playing, but I genuinely kind of feel bad for the Bucs because if you look at their injury reports, list their 10 most important players. 8 of them aren't playing this week. Yeah, or projected to not play this week, or have not practiced at all this week. So I think the Chargers get it done, especially playing at home. My dad will finally get to see the team that he's rooting for win at SoFi Stadium. I don't think it'll be a big, high-scoring game, but I'll go Chargers win 22-17.
Okay, that's fair. I'm a little apprehensive about the offense, specifically with Justin's health. Justin's gonna play, he practiced today. The Chargers posted a clip right before we jumped on of him meeting a fan, and he's walking a little gingerly. But listen, as long as he can sit in the pocket and throw the football, I expect him to play. And maybe he's not able to run and move we would like to see. But the good news with this injury is that it's his front ankle, not his back ankle. So he should still be able to drive the football and execute, all of the things that they're trying to have him execute. And we've seen him play great even when he's limited healthy. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens with Ladd. If Ladd doesn't play, I will probably change my prediction. Even though I still think they will win the game. Just because I think the Chargers defense is going to be really up for the task today or on Sunday. So if Ladd plays, I think the Chargers can win 23-17, like similar thing that you said.
Yeah.
If Ladd doesn't play, I think that's probably more of like a 20-17 situation, like win by a field goal type deal. If you think the Chargers are winning this game by 10 points, I can understand how you would get there. But I do think the Buccaneers are a good, scrappy team. They've done a really good job of having a schematic edge in most of their games. Liam Cohen's doing a great job. Todd Bowles blitzes a lot, does some aggressive things. So I think the Buccaneers will at least keep it close, but I do expect the Chargers to bounce back, especially after just like kind of the vibe of the locker room after the game on Sunday night. Like they were not happy with the result of that game. And so I think we'll see them come out firing this week.
Yeah, I love that. I missed the post-game aggression or whatever it was. So excited to see the poor Tampa Bay Buccaneers be on the receiving end.
They asked Khalil Mack, like, oh, like, wasn't it cool to see like the offense like respond back? And he was like, fuck that. I wanted to win.
I love that.
Yeah. And Jesse Minter, you know how Jesse responded previously against the Chiefs. Today also he was like, yeah, we're not satisfied. I'm like, I love this guy so much.
No, and I don't know if he said he wants to see them again, but he knows they will potentially see them again in the postseason. Yeah, this team, I like the mentality. It could be dangerous. Khalil Mack is like, yeah, we can stop Derrick Henry. I want to see him again. And after the Chiefs, it's like, yeah, let's go see him again. So they're up to the task, I think, in a game like this.
It's really interesting, the character of this team. Obviously, like we're 15 weeks into the season. The defense is never satisfied with anything. Like they are like, we expect so much of ourselves. The offense is a little bit more like, oh, we're building, we're trying to find it. They're a little bit more like patient with themselves, it sounds like. I wish the Chargers offense had a little bit more of that energy, that aggressive nature that the defense has. But that's the kind of the nature of the beast, just because of the sides of the football. But I love the energy of the defense this season. They're very much not satisfied with success. Like even if they win a game, they're like, hey man, we should have played better.
They didn't get negative points, therefore we should be
therefore like when they played the Saints and the Saints scored at the end, they were like, what the fuck?
I love that. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Love Jesse Minter.
All
right, Tyler, any final thoughts here before we get to these couple super chats and maybe we can take a couple questions tonight?
Yeah, it's definitely a less interesting game than I thought it was going to be 2 months ago or so. That's a good thing, obviously, because it means the Chargers have a better chance of winning. I genuinely don't know if that team that the Bucs had 2 months ago rolled into town this week. I don't know if the Chargers would win this game because they were very dangerous. They are much less dangerous this game. I think the Chargers will pull it out. Not that this is a bad team like the Titans or whatever, but the Chargers have been taking care of business against teams they should beat. Yes. Whether it's by 3 or by 10 or by 17, I think they'll take care of business this week.
I think that's a great point, right? And that's the new thing for us this year is that being a real legitimate thing. But yeah, like even 6 weeks ago, a month ago, I was nervous about this game. And now, unfortunately for the Bucs, they're just very injured. Like if Tristan Wirfs can't play, like Khalil Mack's going to have a day against a backup offensive tackle. Like we've seen that story time and time again. So things can change quickly in the NFL. And obviously Mike Evans not playing potentially is a huge deal for them as well.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So from a super chat standpoint, we have one from Dark Samus earlier this evening. He wants to know any good free agent cards who can block Chris Jones. That's a short list of players in general. Chris Jones is a great player, but we've talked a little bit about some free agents. I have to say, I'm a little less inclined to pay Trey Smith than Chargers fans are. He's a tone setter kind of player, but if you actually watch him like from a technicality standpoint, there's a lot of issues there, and Puna Ford and Tiertar kind of cooked him a couple times on Sunday night.
Yeah, man. A couple times I was surprised, and same goes for Joe Tooney in a couple of respects there. The Chargers defense, man, like that interior, they were up to the task.
They
like,
came to play last week. Yeah,
they definitely came to play. Trey Smith, I'm obviously fine paying him if that's what they'd like to do, but some people are like blank check, like pay him whatever. He's an elite guard. That's not really the case. And that's not even statistically the case. He's not allowed the sacks that Zion has. So the PBE is definitely different there, but he's gone through some stretches where it's kind of some of the same. Now, is that better than Trey Pipkins right now? Yes, but I don't know.
Yeah, he's obviously the headliner, right? But there are some good other players, and I do agree with you. I'm a little less inclined to believe that he is worth the kind of money that he'll merit. But I mean, like, the right guard contracts that have been handed out recently are really starting to jump up there. I mean, Robert Hunt got $100 million last year from the Panthers.
Yeah.
And Sam Cosmi got an extension worth $18.5 million. And Kevin Dotson for the Rams got $16 million. Like, I think there's a world where we see Trey Smith get like $21 million per year. And I don't know. I'm a little weary of paying him that kind of money to come to this team.
Yeah, especially with potentially center needing to be figured out. Again, we'll have to go through this draft and figure out who the heck is where and what. Sounds like you might start it during winter break.
Yeah,
but
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
The other big name that people have thrown around is Zach Martin. Listen, like one of the best players of our generation, but it sounds like he's potentially mulling retirement this year. Mm-hmm. So that's unfortunate for him. Outside of that, you have a couple other like definite players where they can go upgrade. Tevin Jenkins is a free agent. We'll see what happens there. Mm-hmm. Kevin Zeitler for the Lions. They might re-sign him. I don't know. Austin Corbett for the Panthers can play center or guard. Will Fries from the Colts, he would be a choice there. Will Hernandez from the Cardinals. There's some good players at right guard that they can go sign if they really wanted to spend some money there.
Yeah, as every year, can't always upgrade everything.
Yeah,
have to find something.
Yeah, and they could always draft somebody as well. I don't know.
Yeah, just jumping ahead real quick because we're talking about it. Phineas is asking if they will rotate Sawyer in more versus the Bucs. There wasn't anything outside of the very short yardage stuff where Sawyer rotated in, was there? I don't recall a specific play.
So he had 3 snaps last week. Mm-hmm. 2 of them were sneaks, and then there was one play where he did come in and they were in like a very heavy personnel package and they did like a bit of a play action thing.
Yeah.
But it was just the 3 snaps. Otherwise, Trey is playing the bulk of the snaps still. Rotating, it's so tough to rotate offensive linemen. Like if you ask Duke or Brandon Thorne or anybody, that they've seen some teams do it, and it's like the worst thing ever, according to them. But I do think there is a world where we see Jamari play like 8 snaps. I don't know. Like he is carving out a nice role in terms of short yardage situations, but it's becoming rather obvious. Like when he comes in, this is what the Chargers are going to do. And so far the other teams haven't really been able to stop them, but
no,
rotating an offensive lineman, it just gives it's such an obvious tell for these teams if they are only going to run play action when Jamari's in there.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's the same with Gus Edwards, but it's like you're probably not doing a whole lot of throwing to him.
Yeah. For what it's worth, Trey Pipkins did miss practice today. It was not injury related. It was listed as a personal issue on the injury report. So we'll see. We'll have to monitor that tomorrow if he is able to practice. The last one here from NSN. Do you think the Chargers have solved their second half offensive issues? I really think we lose if they can't fix that.
It's tricky to say without McConkey, without Disley, Herbert potentially being banged up. Like, I don't even know if we'll know if they've solved it or not. I do think, though, they've at least, by leaning into the run game and what kind of is their identity, I think that will help some of their second half issues. I think even moving from dead last to, hey, how many times have we had this conversation, by the way? Moving from dead last to anything in the 20s would be positive. So I think you can see them start to shift back towards more positive, but I don't think they can really express themselves yet until they have McConkey.
Yeah. Completely solved. Like, we need more data there. If they have another great second half this week, and they have another good second half against the Broncos, then we'll
Definitely
obviously understand. You know, the Broncos are a much better defense, so that's gonna be a bigger challenge, especially on a short week. But like, we need more data. Against the Falcons, they were one of the worst second half offenses in the league, if not the worst. So we need to see more information. But I think if Greg Roman can really rely on the bones of the offense, then I think the second half offense can continue. I think for me, the biggest issue in the second half is they've completely abandoned their identity over the last few weeks. Like, they'll run a lot of 2 tight end sets, fullback, play action, run everything in the first half. And then previously in the second half, it's like, okay, here's 11 personnel, and we're going to run stick 4 or 5 times, and then we're going to run deep crossers and all this stuff. And it's like, wait, this is not how you are successful as an offense. This past week against the Chiefs, they stuck to their identity, and it worked. So if Greg Roman can just run the hits, if you will, I think their offense can be much better in the second half.
Yeah. So Randall's asking, does the half really matter? Caleb's coming in talking about it matters for like time possession, clock management. It could be anything. I mean, we saw the second half almost matter a ton against the Chiefs. I mean, the fact that they scored 17 in the second half was huge. Yeah. So just being able to almost climb out of a hole, or even climb out of the hole and win, is huge in the second half. So we're just hoping for a bit more. I would like to see the Chargers on offense find different ways to win games. Yeah. And it just feels like every time we see the offense start pretty strong, fade away, start strong, fade away. I'd like to see them also show that they can, score some more points in the second half.
Or they do what they did last week, and they were awful in the first half and then great in the second half.
Can't blow a lead if you ain't got a lead.
Yeah.
So, if that's how they want to win games, that's fine by me. It's kind of like the Chiefs way of doing it.
Yeah. I like the last time we saw a full 4-quarter performance from the offense was probably the Panthers game in week 2. And it's been very up and down, more up and down, I think, than we were expecting this year. Again, some of that is personnel issues, some of that is injuries, stuff like that. But this offense has got to find a way to stay on schedule. If they every time they have like a negative run on first down or a penalty or whatever, it just always feels like, okay, this drive's over, like they're going to punt. And they have to find a way to get away from that. There was a little hope there from last week, like where they converted a 3rd and 16 and stuff like that. But like, watching the games, it just feels like if they can't get a successful play on first down, it just feels so much tighter on 2nd and 3rd down.
Yeah, I agree.
Randall, yes, to clarify, the Chargers are much, much better in the first half offensively than the second half. I can pull the statistics really quickly. I don't know if you have them on hand, Tyler, but I can look them up right now.
Yeah, go for it. So are they less effective by half, or is it just circumstances or random? Given that it's been a season-long issue, I don't think it's random. 37 yards against the Falcons is 37 yards against the Falcons. if they have a 20-point lead, 23-point lead, even kind of like against the Bengals, right? And then the offense isn't like so great in the second half because they have such a lead, and it's really just kind of like, let's get out of here and go home. That's one thing, but they're generally like kind of close in a lot of these games. So you'd like to see them do anything, but there was a stretch there. They didn't score like a touchdown. They scored like 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns in the second half over 3-4 games or whatever it was.
Yeah. So in terms of EPA per play, which again, we could talk about points and things like that, but I think EPA per play and success rate is probably a better way of like measuring how effective they are. In the first half, they are 15th in EPA per play, and in the second half, they are 22nd in EPA per play. In success rate, it's actually a much more significant drop off. They are 19th in success rate in the first half and 32nd in the second half. So Still very bad in the second half from a success rate standpoint.
Yeah.
So the percentage is increasing, but the ranking is not. I guess is good.
Cool.
All right. I'm excited about this matchup, even if it's a little watered down. I think the Chargers are itching to respond from Sunday night, and I think they will do so in a pretty convincing fashion. So that is going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, whether that is live or on replay, audio, whatever the case may be. We appreciate your support. Please leave us a rating, review, comment, like, all that good stuff. It does help continue to grow the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.